Hi everybody, this is the intro to the 2.6 factoring special cases video. I realized after I had made the video that I did not include something that might be super helpful for you, so I just wanted to highlight it. You might already known it or picked up on it in the video, but here it is. Normally when we look at our trinomials, we've got something that looks like this. Let's say x squared plus 4x plus 4. We have this x term, which is right in the middle, right? And what's going to happen in this lesson is we're going to have cases where we don't have that x term, and we just have something that looks like this here. So it would be x squared minus 4, right? So notice we're missing the x term, the middle term there. And if that's the case, as we set up our t-charts, which I'll do here, we would have x squared on the left, negative 4 on the right, and so the middle part here is 0x, right? That's because we don't have an x term, so that means I'm trying to add up to 0x, and so we would have something that looks like this, x times x, which gives me x squared, and 2 times negative 2, which gives me negative 4, and then the cross products here, I'd end up with negative 2x and positive 2x, which of course would give me 0x, and that's because I'm missing that x term in the middle. So if you end up with something that looks like this, right, just two terms, no x term, we're trying to get that bottom bubble, right, the middle term to be 0x, which means we need these numbers to cancel out. All right, you'll see the rest of that in the video. Here it goes. Okay, we're going to jump into lesson 2.6 for the Math 2 prep here, which is on factoring special cases. We've already done some factoring here of these quadratics, mostly trinomials. We'll look at a couple of special cases here when we start to factor a couple trinomials and binomials as well. The first one that we've got here is this squared binomial, and it says positive. And so we'll start this one just the same way as we normally would with the t-chart. All right, so I'll go ahead and create the t-chart here. And then, of course, we've got 20x as my bubble down below, right? That's what I'm shooting for the sum. And now I've got to get these two on the left to multiply. So 2x times 2x gives me 4x squared. So that's for that left side. And then on the right, we've got 5 and 5, and that'll give me 25. And then if I take the sum of the cross products, I get 10x here, and I get 10x here, which gives me that 20x. And then notice what we've got here is we've got two factors, 2x plus 5 and 2x plus 5, which are exactly the same. So instead of writing them separately, I can write this factored trinomial as 2x plus 5 squared. And then I get my answer there. Since it's the same factor, right, since it's the same binomial two times, I wrote it as 2x plus 5 squared because there's two of them. And then similarly, if we move our way to the second one here, we can do the same thing. We've got set up the t-chart here. And I'm going to start with 2x and 2x. That gives me 4x squared. And then over here, I'm going to go negative 5 and negative 5, because when I multiply those two, I get a positive 25. But you'll notice that if I take the sum of the cross products here, right, this would give me negative 10x. And over here, I'd get negative 10x. And together, of course, those would give me the negative 20x, which is what I'm looking for in the middle there. And so for this one, I've got those two factors, 2x minus 5, 2x minus 5. And so I can rewrite that as 2x minus 5. Since there's two of them, I'm going to write it as 2x minus 5 squared. And I get my factored form there. And then we'll go over here to difference of squares. So there's a couple of important pieces here, just right in the title. First, difference, which means that we've got subtraction there, right? So that's why we've got the subtraction symbol. And then of squares, and this is meaning that we have perfect squares here as my coefficients and my constants here. And that means that I can take the square root of 16 and I can take the square root of 25. Those are perfect squares. So when we have a setup that looks like this, I'm going to go to my t-chart. There's no x term, so that's like a 0x in the middle there. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead, okay, and say 16 squared. So if I take the square root of 16, that's going to give me 4x. and 4x. That'll give me 16x squared. And then I'm going to do 5 and negative 5 because that gives me negative 25 when I multiply. And then you'll notice the cross products here. I'm going to get negative 20x and I get positive 20x, and those cancel out in the middle for 0x. And so my factored form, I'm going to have a 4x plus 5, and I'm going to have a 4x minus 5. And so that's the difference of squares there. It's subtraction, it's perfect square numbers, and we end up with our factored form down below. Right. We'll go through a couple of these here. And I want you to keep in mind that some of these will require you to factor out a greatest common factor first, so a GCF first. We'll start with this one. Notice it's a difference of squares here because we've got the subtraction, and then we've also got the perfect square, which is 4, right? And then obviously there's a 1 here in front of the x squared, which is also a perfect square. And so I can go ahead and factor this one. There's no x term in the middle, so that means we're trying to get 0x here. So this is going to be x and x, that's x squared. 2 and negative 2 will give me negative 4 when I multiply. And then, of course, when I add those things up, they'll give me 0 in the middle, which is perfect. And so my factored form looks like this, x plus 2 and x minus 2. All right. And we'll keep going here. Let's go to letter B. All right, trinomial here, so same thing, we set up with the t-chart. So we're going to go ahead and say x and x gives me that x squared. And then over here I'm going to say 8 and 8 gives me 64. And then notice if I take the sum of the cross products here, that would be 8x and another 8x, which together gives me 16x. And so then I would end up with this x plus 8 and x plus 8, which I can write as x plus 8 squared. Notice I'm going pretty quickly through these just for the sake of time, but you can of course slow this down, right? Just like I always say, if you know how the rules work for these factoring using the t-chart, then it might take you a couple tries to get the right combination, but that's okay, right? You just keep trying, and if you don't get it, you try a different combination until you get it. All right, I'm going to go to letter C. This one a little bit trickier because it does require a GCF first. So I'm going to go ahead and take out that greatest common factor first, which of course in this case is a 15. So I'll factor that 15 out, and that's going to leave me with 1x squared minus 1. And then I can go ahead and t-chart this part that's in the parentheses here, because this is another difference of squares where I have x and 1 and negative 1, because 1 times negative 1 does give me negative 1 there. Your clue that you probably have more factoring, if you're wondering like how do I know to keep t-charting, is if you have x squared, there's a chance that you would be able to do the t-chart. So that's why I said, okay, well I still have x squared, so I'm going to try a t-chart here, and this one does work out. And so then my final answer looks like this. It's going to be 15 and then x plus 1 and x minus 1. And we've got our factored form there. All right, moving to letter D. Okay, same deal. We got a trinomial, so I'll go ahead and set up the t-chart here. X times x gives me that x squared. And then I'm going to go negative 7 times negative 7, because when I multiply those, I get positive 49. And the key here is that those will add up to negative 14. That's how I knew they both had to be negative. And just like before, they're the same binomial, right? Same factor 2 times, so I can rewrite this as x minus 7 squared.